Representative McDonald, do you want to make any predictions on what's going to happen with the future of Jimmy Nafee as Speaker of the House?
I have no idea. All I know is, and I've done this several times, we convene in that week in January. I think we go back on the 13th, and a speaker will be elected. Now, the reality is nobody knows who the new speaker is going to be. All I know is two people on the Republican side have expressed an interest. Jason Mumpower, who has been the Republican leader, and Beth Harwell, who was a co-chair of the McCain campaign in Tennessee. So you got two Republicans over there who are interested in being Speaker. And of course, I'm sure Speaker Nafee would like to somehow remain as Speaker. So who knows? I mean, you don't know until that roll call vote is taken. Yeah. And we'll just have to wait and see.
Definitely.
I just want to make note of some of the local and state races that we have. In the state Senate race covering Sumner and Robertson counties, Republican Diane Black keeps her seat, winning 65% of the votes over Democratic challenger Jim Hauskins. In the state House, two incumbents won easily, Republican Deborah Maggart with 65% over Andy Allman and Republican Susan Lynn with 72% over Ken Wilkinson.
There were also three races with incumbent House Democrats. Two of them won. Mike McDonald, of course, you were unopposed. Our congratulations anyway. I'm sure that's a much better position to be in than you've been at other times in the past. And Stratton Bone stays in with 56% of the vote over Albert McCall. A new House representative for Robertson County, however, Joshua Evans takes 52% of the vote over incumbent Democrat Bob Bibb. Republicans will now have the majority, as we said, needed to decide the state's constitutional offices. It will be the first time in the history of the state of Tennessee that the GOP will be appointing the Secretary of State, Treasurer, and Comptroller. Now, you've got to have some opinions about how that may affect business up on the Hill.
Well, obviously, if the Republicans choose to select new constitutional officers other than the ones that we currently have, that's going to make a difference. I don't know who they will be. I don't know what kind of background they will have. Here's what I do know. John Morgan has been an exceptional comptroller. He is knowledgeable. He's smart. And I would hate to see him leave. I know what kind of man he is and know what kind of job he's done. And the same goes for our state treasurer, Dale Sims. Very knowledgeable, very competent, and done an outstanding job, as well as our Secretary of State, Riley Darnell. Now, maybe the Republicans can find some better constitutional officers, but I sure don't know who they are, because we have had some exceptional leaders in those three positions. They are appointed by the Tennessee General Assembly, and obviously the Republicans control that now, so I'm assuming they'll make changes. But I think it'd be hard to beat those three gentlemen who are serving in those offices currently.
There's been a lot of talk about those being elected positions. Grady, can you think of any reason why it would be better for those positions to be elected instead of appointed?
Not right off the top of my head. Obviously, there's the traditional American movement that we want things to be more democratic. So the more offices that are elected offices, the more democratic we feel that those things are. But just because they're democratic doesn't necessarily mean that that makes them better offices. Right. Sometimes keeping that within the party is not always a bad way to go.
It goes back to some of the arguments about if the Electoral College still works. You know, it was put in place a long time ago in part because they didn't necessarily think people knew enough about what was going on to make educated decisions. Do we as a people know enough about the business of comptroller, do you think, for us to elect those positions?
Well, I don't know that people really think about what those jobs entail, right. But they are very important jobs. Those men help make the predictions about our economy in Tennessee, which in turn helps with the formulation of the state budget. They are just very, very important jobs. It takes a lot of dedication, incidentally, to be a constitutional officer because it is so demanding and requires so much time. But my hope and prayer is that we have three good leaders in those positions because they are very important for the future of the state.
Now, the three constitutional officers and the State Finance Commissioner also make up the membership of the State Funding Board, charged with making revenue projections. The same four officers and the two speakers sit on the State Building commission that has authority over most of the state's capital projects. Any thoughts here?
Well, again, those positions are very, very important, and we have to do what a lot of other states and of course the federal government, everybody else has to do, and that's make projections. And in Tennessee, we make very conservative revenue projections. Unfortunately, the economy's been so bad that we are not collecting the revenue we anticipated collecting, and they say that by the end of the fiscal year, which is next June, we could be $600 million short. Well, that's a lot of money. We only have about $750 million in our rainy day fund, and thank goodness Governor Bredesen worked very hard to build up that rainy day fund. So that funding board is very, very important. They call economists in particular Dr. Fox from the University of Tennessee, and they look at the numbers, they look at the trends, they look at all this financial information, and they make revenue projections based on their best information. And they have to make wise decisions, and my experience has been they make very, very conservative decisions about revenue projections. Right. But they could not have anticipated this downturn in the economy and consequently the shortfall that we're experiencing in revenue. Again, it's projected to be about $600 million. Right. Governor Bredesen did not even go out and campaign in some instances near the end of the campaign because he said, I have got to stay here and work on this budget problem. And so he did. And I'm sure we'll find some way to deal with it. It's not going to be easy to make up that kind of shortfall.
We've got just about a minute left, and I don't want to ignore the historical importance of the fact that we do have our first African-American president. Grady, from a history perspective, we've got just about a minute. I know that's not giving you much time. What impact do you think this has on history?
I think it's enormous. I just came from my African American history class that I teach this morning. One of the first things we talked about was this is a game changer in a variety of ways. Liberals and conservatives, blacks and whites, everybody, the word is that the era of excuses is done. So that idea of a post-racial society is potentially very much upon us, and this is going to change policy, the way we teach history, the way we do a variety of things. But we kind of got to wait to see how some of this is going to play out, but the impact is going to be enormous, I think.
Well, thank you so much for both being here with us today, and I'm sure we will have you back, Representative McDonald, when you guys get down to business in January.
Look forward to it.
All right. Well, that does it for our post-election edition of Inside Politics. Our congratulations to everyone who got out and voted in this historic election. Your vote really does make a difference.
Now, with the election behind us, we'll begin to take a closer look at what lies ahead for the 106th session of the Tennessee General Assembly. We hope you'll join us again next time.
For more information about the guest on this show, please visit our website at ballstate.edu/insidepolitics.